Hello, and welcome to Authors Amplified. I'm your host, Stephanie O'Neill. My show is a part of the Amplified Podcast Network, where ideas echo and voices resonate. With over 20 years at Christian Television Network, I've had the privilege of meeting countless talented and spiritual individuals, and it's too inspiring not to share. I'm just a girl who loves Jesus wholeheartedly. I'm eager to learn and grow, and I'd like you to join me on this journey. In each episode, I'll be speaking with Christian authors who will share their stories and insights about the books they've written. I'm thrilled to have you with us, so let's get started. Welcome to Authors Amplified. This is one you're going to want to sit down and you are going to want to listen. How does a private missionary living a quiet life overseas accidentally write one of the most influential devotional books in modern history? And what happens when the brother of that author is also a clinical psychologist who watched the whole transformation happen? Today on the show, we have Dr. Timothy Kelly. He's joining us to dissect the intersection of faith, trauma, and the legacy of his sister, Sarah Young. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Stephanie.
So happy to have you. This book took me on quite the emotional journey. It made me laugh. It made me cry. It made me want to do better. It was so good.
Well, it still impacts me. Believe it or not, I still find myself reading portions now and again and tearing up.
Yeah.
It was quite a journey, quite
a legacy that your sister. First, let's just talk a little bit about your sister, right? Sarah
Sure.
Young. Let's talk a little bit about her. Tell the listeners, because I hope I might have some younger listeners who don't know her legacy. So could you just tell us a little bit about Sarah?
Well, she's my older sister, and we kind of connected well all along, starting in our teenage years, really. And is it okay if I go into a little of the story of
Please.
upbringing?
Yes.
As anybody who reads the book will know, her upbringing was not easy. Our family, before the light of Christ came into our family, it was pretty dysfunctional. We had our dark places and our difficulties, and they fell most harshly on Sarah for reasons that are mentioned in the book. As teenagers, we were close, and we were both wrapped up into that thing called the counterculture, or flower children, or even hippies. I don't know if many of your listeners even know what that was, but in the late 60s, early 70s, it was people who were dissatisfied with life, who didn't know up from down, who were hurting, but didn't know where to turn, and sought refuge anywhere we possibly could.
Yeah.
And we were both swimming in all that. And at one point, she was at Wellesley studying to get a degree in philosophy, actually. She really wanted always to know what was true, what was real. And so she figured getting an undergrad degree in philosophy would do that. It turns out it didn't, but she tried. And I had fallen in love with Europe. I was 20 at the time, and I came and visited her in Wellesley on the way to Europe. We had a great couple of days, and she told me she heard about this place called L'Abri, where you could stay virtually for free if you were just a traveling hippie sort. And she said, all you have to do is argue about God and work half the day. And I thought that sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
So I took her up on it. Now, notice she was not a believer at this time, far from it, and neither was I. But she had a friend come back and say this was worth trying. So I did. I walked into L'Abri and started listening to what they were saying. I put myself to work as well and became quite convinced that there was something to this after all. And eventually I found myself reading one of the books in one of the garden areas there overlooking the Swiss Valley. This is up in a place called Wemo, Switzerland, by the way. And the book was called Basic Christianity. It's a good book to this day, I think, by John Stott. And at the end, I was encouraged to say a repentant prayer. And So I did. And I became a believer. I came back, and Sarah was freaked out because she blamed herself for the fact that I came back sounding like what she said was a hippie freak.
Mm-hmm.
And from then on, I was encouraging her to go to L'Abri as well. And she, as is laid out in the book, I won't go into it all here, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, there's a story behind this. But she eventually concedes and goes, and sure enough, is also touched by the Lord and finds Christ. And in fact, she mentions that in her first book, Jesus Calling, that encounter up in the snowy mountains of the Alps
Mm-hmm.
overlooking L'Abri, where she was just moved by the presence of the Lord and found herself saying, "Sweet Jesus."
Mm-hmm.
Now, after that, she never looked back. She ended up going to Covenant Seminary. She met her husband there. They married in 1977. And 6 months later, they're on the mission field in Japan. And that's where the hard times started. As you know, having read the book, being a missionary in Japan is not a piece of cake.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a lot about it in her letters. We were all praying for her, but she pointed out that it was a difficult thing, but that every difficulty drove her more into the arms of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at that point, I kind of thought she was just saying, you know, what we're all supposed to say. But turns out she meant it. And so she had some tough years on the mission field. A total of, I think, 35 years, 10 years in Japan, 22 maybe in Australia, working with the Japanese population there, and another few years in Atlanta, and then came moving back to Brentwood, Tennessee in 2013. But that was a long journey.
Mm-hmm.
And there were many, many challenges along the way, which we can go into if you want to. It has to do with being on the mission field, and it's just not easy. In fact, one of the articles she quoted in one of her prayer letters was the high rate of depression among
Mm-hmm.
missionary wives,
Yeah.
especially in Japan. And then add to that, from 1999 on, she was struggling with medical woes that nobody could figure out.
Mm-hmm.
They got quite severe and eventually took her out.
Mm-hmm.
In the midst of all that, though, was a 10-year journey of writing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want me to jump into that or if you want to pause for a moment, but that's the beautiful part of the story, really.
Yeah. So she wrote Jesus Calling, Jesus Listens, and many other devotionals.
Yes. And
Yes.
in fact, her devotionals at this point, I think the latest number is about over 50 million have been sold of the series of Jesus
Wow.
Calling.
Mm-hmm.
And people around the world have been touched, have been moved, have been inspired, have been drawn nearer to Jesus. It's been translated into 35 languages. It's
Wow.
incredible,
That is
really incredible.
incredible. That's incredible. Let's start with why you wrote this book. When did you first feel called to write Journey to Jesus about your sister?
Well, when she passed in August 31, 2023, 3 years ago,
Mm,
I was devastated like everyone. We were so close and we kind of got each other all through our life. And as you know, if you've read the book, there's many parallels in our lives. We
mm-hmm,
even got the same degrees, undergraduate and graduate.
mm-hmm,
So, and she was the person I would go to when I needed to have wise counsel or prayer support or just hang out. So when she passed, I was devastated like everyone, and I found myself just overwhelmed with grief. And I went to the local Starbucks. What do you do if you're grieving? You go to a Starbucks, you get a nice cup of coffee, and you start writing. I just started writing down my memories of her, little
mm,
things that had occurred. And I was doing that for actually a couple of weeks. I would go to this Starbucks in the late afternoon when I had free time and just sit there writing. And sometimes tears would flow, and people would kind of wonder about that, or maybe ask if they could help. But I thanked them for the kindness, but there's nothing anybody could do. But
mm-hmm,
after a couple of weeks of that, I got the idea that maybe there was a story here that could be told that wouldn't just be for processing my own grief, which is what that was, but that would be beneficial, that would actually accomplish three things. And these are my three goals all along. It sort of occurred to me right off the bat. It would glorify Christ
Mm,
by celebrating his transformative, redemptive love in the life of Sarah, in my life, in our family's life. Our family went from dark to light. It was
mhm.
an amazing transformation. It was beautiful. That, celebrating Christ. Secondly, it would honor Sarah by kind of showing a bit of the backstory of her life. You know,
Mhm.
what she went through, what she endured, what she overcame, how that drove her every time, ever more into the arms of Christ. And you
Mhm.
know, every time I say that, I'm caught a little because it's one of those phrases that can be used, you know, so quickly and so tritely, but
Yes.
as in her life, it was literally true.
Mhm.
And I think because of that, she was able to capture so much of the meaning and the joy of the presence of Christ and communicate that to others.
Mhm.
It was related to the level of suffering that she endured. In fact, as you know, one of the things that she would say is, well, Tim, I see this as two sides of one coin. You know, this crazy suffering I'm going through from my life journey as well as from my medical woes now, and my ability to speak and minister to millions of people around
Mm.
the world in the name of Christ, which is so wonderful. And she said, you know what? I'm fine with that.
Mhm.
She was amazed. She never complained. But anyway, I was starting to conclude that there was a book possibility here. I checked with a good pastor friend of ours, see what he thought about it. He said, "Yeah, Tim, it's a story that must be told because it completes Sarah's testimony
Mm.
by showing the background, the life, the behind the scenes story that made her who she is and able to write so wonderfully."
Yes. My next question you've kind of answered already, but Jesus' calling radiated just profound peace. Yet her life was filled with intense physical pain and family dysfunction. How did she find the supernatural quietness in the middle of such loud, chaotic storms? But I think you're saying you've answered that and you said Jesus. That's how,
Yeah, but what comes to mind though, can I jump from that to the story of how she wrote the book?
please.
Because there was a, as you know, there was a 10-year journey there, which is laid out
Mm-hmm.
in detail. I won't go into all the details, but it started in 1996. Oh, I'm sorry, 1993, when she started writing devotions. And at that time, she was in Melbourne, and I remember her saying that she had started to write her own devotions, pretty much just for herself, but maybe someday for sharing with others. And
Mm-hmm.
already that first person voice was coming in. So I think already in 1993, she was finding that there was an access to Jesus in the midst of the suffering that was really quite beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
she captured it um, with words. She captured it with her writing. And thankfully, she's always been a gifted writer. I think the Lord used that. So in
Yes.
1993, she started. In 1996, she was reading a book on career calling from a Christian perspective. And the question was raised, what is the Lord calling you to do right now? And she heard immediately, write for publication.
Mm.
So she began to collect those devotionals that she'd written and submitted them for publication. It didn't get very far. Her first shot, there were no takers. But to answer your question, to come back to your question, I think from 93 on, per her own writings, she was doing what she was writing about, and that is every morning coming to the Lord
Mm.
for a personal quiet time and devotion, listening, reading scripture, writing down what she heard or felt or concluded, and pulling that together into a devotion. I think first just for her, and then eventually for others too. But I think that's the daily process that
Mm.
allowed her to survive and get through all the trials and tribulations that she did.
Yeah.
And then just to complete the story of the writing, started in 1993. In 1996, she found no takers. She worked more until 1999, got a whole year's worth in a manuscript, uh, carried that to the States, met with that same pastor, by the way, that I was referring, and he told her gently, you know, there's too many devotionals, Sarah. I don't think this is going to go very far. And so she was in the States promoting it for about 2 years, and then had to go back to the mission field in 2001. And at that point, she wasn't discouraged. I was. I was wondering, oh, poor thing, you know, all she's gone through and still nothing.
Hmm.
And 2 years later, 2003, 10 years after she started writing those devotions, the first person devotions, out comes an email out of the blue from Integrity Publishing saying, we came across your manuscript. We want to sign you.
Wow.
It was published a year later, 2004. She had her first author's signing in 2005, the next time she was back in the States. And you know the rest of the story.
Right from there. Wow, that's amazing. There are so many testimonies in this book, and I want to cover as many as we can in them. You noted that Christ's love transformed your family from difficulties and dysfunction to one of loving closeness. What sparked that specific healing process? Because that's quite a testimony, because your mother wanted to leave your dad, but he wouldn't because of the kids. Am I remembering that correctly?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was not healthy, right? It was not a healthy environment.
Well, no, the reason she wanted to live was because our eldest sister had been banned forever from the
Mm-hmm.
family, cut off
Mm-hmm.
from the family because of her
Mm-hmm.
choice of who she wanted to marry. We
Mm-hmm.
were struggling. And my dad, bless his heart, he didn't have a dad. His dad died when he was 4. And so he didn't know how to be a dad. He didn't know how to say "I love you." He didn't know
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things that we want and need our dads to say.
Yes.
And he came down pretty hard on Sarah for reasons that are in the book. And so when I came back, a new believer from L'Abri, the whole family was kind of shook up. You know, who's this Jesus freak kid now? But they were pretty impressed with the fact that my demeanor changed. And Sarah's even written about that. She said she wasn't too interested in what I had to say theologically, but she was pretty interested in the fact that I had transformed,
And you
from,
stayed transformed, it
and
said.
stayed
Like,
that way.
yes.
They kept thinking the Jesus freak phase would
Yeah.
fade and I'd be normal again, but it just
Yeah.
didn't happen. So then she comes back a believer. And then eventually she falls in love after going to the seminary, and they're planning her wedding. And at that point, all hell breaks loose because my father, bless his heart, even though he had become renewed in his faith too, and our family was becoming, instead of a cold and distant place, a warm and communicative place already, but he still hadn't welcomed that band sister back into the family.
Wow.
Sarah then said, you know what? Either you welcome her back into the family or you're not walking me down the aisle, which was amazing. I mean, I thought that was going to blow everything up. Instead, give him credit. Our father took it to heart, prayerfully, thoughtfully, and said, okay, I'll welcome her back into the family. In fact, I'll call and do it myself. And
Wow.
from that time on, our family was transformed. You know, when we would sit down around meals, instead of it being just a superficial, kind of not very pleasant time, it was warm, it was friendly, it was interesting. Even my dad became accessible. You could talk with him about things. So it went from night to day.
Hmm.
And she played the major role in that when she called that question.
Yeah. Did your mom ever discuss with you guys the difference in your father and like what it meant to her, or like the testimony of all of that? I'm just curious because that's quite a change to go from who he was and what God did to who he became.
Well, and she was changing too. I mean,
Hmm.
she was very loving and fun loving, but she had her issues too. And
Hmm.
as you know, if you've read the book, she sometimes guilted Sarah in a way that was very unhelpful. So she
Yes.
transformed as well. I think she appreciated the changes in Daddy, we call him,
Yeah.
but she was also transforming herself. The whole family was transformed in a beautiful way.
Yeah. It's amazing what God can do when you let him in.
It is. It
It
truly
is.
is. And that was the second goal I wanted to honor all that, the
Yeah.
transformation process.
Yeah, it's amazing. You mentioned that this book began as a way to process your own grief after Sarah passed. How did the writing process act as a form of healing for you?
That's an interesting question, Stephanie. Well, first of all, uh, it was fun just to go back and put together dates and times and things because I had all these things in my mind somewhere, somewhere in those
Yeah.
neurons. But I ended up, interviewing a lot of people and thinking over things and looking back over old emails and pulling it all together. And I found that that was a very deep process because I felt like I was walking through my own journey as well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as indeed I was. And I think the Lord was revealing to me too a lot more about who I am by writing about who Sarah is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that deepened my faith for sure, because the more I read and wrote about Sarah's basic point, that the presence of Christ is accessible. And here's how we can grab onto that and flee to that when needed. You can't write about that for 2.5 years without it affecting you.
Mm-hmm.
So and to this day, I find myself still trying to grow in that regard
Yeah.
because I think that's the point that she makes, if we want to kind of oversimplify it, that so transforms people around the world. Jesus Christ is not just a concept. He is there. His
Mm.
presence is real. It's right here. And here's what you need to do to access that. And when you do that, what do you find? Not some harsh, judging figure, but a loving, redemptive figure who loves you just as you are. And as she points out several times, doesn't see you as the struggling, maybe old, sickly person that you might be by now, but sees you in that beautiful robe of righteousness. And you're
Yeah.
totally beloved as a child of God.
Yeah.
So all that impacted me quite a lot, actually. I think I
Yeah.
grew theologically more through writing that book than anything else I've done.
Yeah. And it reminds you some because I think sometimes we forget all of the amazing things Christ does for us.
True.
The miracles, the healing, the all of the things that he does. I think sometimes, especially when we're going through things, we forget. So having something like this to go back on, that's why I think journaling is so important, to go back and just
Mhm.
remember what God has done for us and that he's still with us and he's still doing it.
Yes, yes, you're right. And Sarah was a big journaler.
Hmm.
And not only that, when she became a believer at L'Abri, one of the leaders there told her about the idea of having a journal of thanksgiving every night.
Mm,
And she took it to heart and found that it was quite a blessing. And as far as I know, she did that every night for
mm.
the rest of her life.
Wow.
And if nothing else, you can look back in that and see, what were the topics and issues that the Lord was addressing, throughout the years of your life. Because
Yes.
you're right, otherwise our memories are kind of faulty, aren't they?
Yes, very much so. Was there a particular section of the book that was your favorite to write as you considered Sarah's faith and legacy and testimony?
Well, it was the Labrie chapters.
Yes.
That was the most fun part to me because, and it also touched me the most because it brought back all those amazing memories. That was it's hard to describe what it's like at this place called L'Abri. It's a Christian community that was high up in the Swiss Alps, and at that time it was run by Dr. Francis Schaeffer and his wife Edith, and the book has some photos of it, as I guess you've
Hmm.
seen. And it was such a beautiful, transformative experience to be there, to be among these people. They didn't try to push anything on you. They just answered honest questions honestly. And it was so incredible, both experientially and intellectually as well, because Sarah and I were pretty skeptical.
Yeah.
And I considered myself, an existentialist. Why not? Life is absurd.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was amazing to find people who were smart, who were intellectually oriented, who could answer questions and answer questions much more powerfully than the philosophies of the day do.
Hmm.
And that deeply moved me. It deeply moved Sarah. So you've got the beautiful panorama of the Swiss landscape. You've
Which
got a
sounds
long
amazing.
it is, I think, beyond belief. And then you've got a loving community of people who are really quite thoughtful, even intellectually gifted. So you can't argue anymore that, well, Christianity is just for people that don't think. No, these were quite thoughtful and well-educated, up-to-date people who could answer any honest question and eventually point back to the biblical truths that underlie the answers. So those Labrie days, both for me and for her came one after the other with the most fun chapters for me. I think it's chapters 8 and 9 or something, kind of in
Hmm.
the middle of the book.
Yeah. I mean, how great that God took you going to Europe and you just stopping through there at a
Hmm.
suggestion of your sister,
It's for
or
free to
because
stay
it
for
was
free.
free. And all he had to do was, talk about or argue about God. And
Yeah, I could do
look
that.
what
Yeah.
he did to your family through all of that. I mean, God is just so good.
That's a good point, Stephanie. I want to give us some tribute to Francis and Edith Schaefer in that community because, but for that community, I don't know if I would have become a believer, maybe by God's grace, but
Mm-hmm.
who knows? I don't know if Sarah would have. I don't know if Jesus' calling ever would have happened. So I think we have to give some credit to Labrie, to all
Yes.
that they did to form and maintain this community, which exists to this day.
Does it
Uh,
really?
oh yeah, yeah, they
Oh,
have 8 locations throughout the world,
wow.
including that one.
Okay.
It's a little different though because back in those days you had this hunger and search for truth and meaning
Yes.
experienced through the counterculture and others. It's not quite like that anymore, but it's still there,
Yeah.
a loving, powerful community. But I like to say, ultimately, of course, the credit for Jesus' calling goes to Jesus, the one
Mm,
who's calling.
yes.
After that, maybe Labrie, because
Mm,
without that ministry, I'm not sure either Sarah or I would have entered into the kingdom,
right.
or that she would have become the person she then became to write Jesus' calling.
Mm, amen. Wow. What do you hope readers who have dog-eared copies of Jesus Calling on their nightstand will discover about the woman behind those words in this book?
Well, I'm glad you put it that way because I see the book as a sort of a verbal portrait. It paints a verbal portrait of who Sarah is. And
Yes.
every time I try to describe her, I get a little teary.
Yep.
So excuse me for that.
Hmm.
But she was deeply loving, tender-hearted. Uh, she was also a very smart and very gifted writer. She was very feisty. I mean, you couldn't push her around.
Yeah.
She had a great sense of humor and this deep spirituality that she kind of discovered and then rode to the end of her days.
Yeah.
All that is the portrait of her that you will
Mm,
see in the book.
yeah.
And I think by seeing that, it adds context and background and authenticity to the teachings of the Jesus Calling series.
Hmm.
To me, it makes it all the more valid what
Yes.
she's saying because she lived it every single day of her life, both on the burden side, unfortunately,
Hmm.
and on the glory side of drawing near to Christ and celebrating his presence every morning in that sunroom of hers, which I know you must have you've read
Yeah.
about as a beautiful
Yeah.
sunroom.
Yes. In reading the book, I talked about the emotional roller coaster, but it did make me want to do better. But it made me, because you said she never complained. She went through all of this and you never heard a complaint from her because she went to the Lord with it. She didn't go to people with it. And I want to do better at that. This book made me want to do better at that. I don't need to go and vent to all my people. I can go
Right,
straight to the Lord. And that
right.
really opened my eye. The book really opened my eyes to that.
And it's really true. And I was amazed by it. And many times I would complain on her behalf and she
Hmm.
would shut me down. You know,
Yep.
yeah, that one time I mentioned, I think I said to Sarah, I can't believe all you're going through. Poor Sarah. And she said, don't ever use that word, Tim. I'm
Yes.
not poor. I'm blessed.
Yep.
I'm blessed every day. And she's saying that while she's struggling with the ravages of Lyme's disease, which transforms into MDS, which transforms into leukemia, which takes her out.
Wow.
But I never heard her complain, not once. She would share sometimes the symptoms for prayers, but
Yep.
she never said, "Oh, poor me that I've got to go through this."
Yep.
Never.
Yep.
And as you know, if I guess since you read the book, I did push her on that point once. I said,
Hmm.
"Don't you ever just get fed up and you want to just complain?" And she says, "Yes, but I don't bring that to the people in my life. I
Mm,
only bring it directly to Jesus, and He's always right there, looking at me with those loving eyes."
that's amazing.
That really is,
We
really
could all
is.
learn from that. That's so
Yep.
good.
Well, that's one thing I hope is that there's a lot of little lessons like that
Yes.
along the way that are good and that'll be a blessing to the reader. That's
Yes.
one of the primary goals as well. I hope that the reader is blessed, and thankfully, I'm getting some initial feedback that that may be the case.
I'm saying mission accomplished.
Oh, thank you, thank
So
you.
good. So the name of the book is Sarah Young's Journey to Jesus, A Brother's Personal Remembrances. Where can listeners find the book?
Well, it's available, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or the Whitaker House, the one that published it. Also, if anybody wants to read the introduction, you can go to my website, and I include the introduction there in case you want to get a taste of it before you buy it, and
Hmm.
then you can click on a button and buy it from Amazon. But my website, what is it? It's a TAK Consult, TAKCONUSLT. No,
You
TAKCONSULT
okay?
at yahoo.com.
That's your email address.
Oh, I
At
mean, .com.
dot
Yeah, I'm not
com.
very good at this. I'm
Okay,
not very
so
good.
say it again.
TAKCONSULT
Dot
.com.
com. Okay, that's where they can read the introduction, and they can click and order the book.
Yeah, and I put the whole intro there because I thought it's fair for people to get a taste, a flavor, before they buy the thing. So
Yeah.
that'd be one way to do it.
I couldn't put the book down. I read it all
Oh,
in one sitting. I could
oh,
not
well,
put
bless
the
your
book
heart.
down. It's so good. So I'm going to suggest for everyone to get it. Sarah Young's Journey to Jesus by Timothy Kelly, her brother. So good. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the book. It's just so, so good.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's been a blessing. Thank you.
God bless you.
Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Authors Amplified. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and subscribe for more incredible authors next time.